I spelled something wrong, so I started over again here.
So how I managed to set two last pre-trials at 3:45.
Well, we'll be busy right till the end of the day. We don't need to finish anything.
Now these things scheduled for 5, what are those?
Oh, they're discovery hearings. They're not really
Not really
real. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Your Honor.
Morning,
Morning.
Your Honor.
Judge Middleton. I'm here at the court in Centerville. And this is the time and date for a formal hearing on a zoning violation from the Village of White Pigeon. The file number is 211089ON. People versus Jerome Cash, people of White Pigeon. Mr. Seth Coaches is here on behalf of the village, and their code compliance officer, Douglas Kuhlman, is here. There was an informal hearing in this matter in front of the magistrate, Mark Trowbridge, and Mr. Cash has appealed it and asked for a formal hearing, which we're about to do here. I would note there is no charging document in the file. There's a ticket, and there will need to be an executed jurat. Mr. Coaches, you're probably not familiar with a jurat, but it's a form that gives authorization for formal hearing in a civil matter. I will proceed under the representation that the ticket is accurate. First thing I'm going to do, Mr. Cash and Mr. Kuhlman, will you both please raise your right hand? You both swear or affirm that any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief.
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Doug, you're on mute again.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you now. The
I do,
jurat
Your Honor.
states that the ticket is accurate, and Mr. Coaches would sign it declaring under the penalties of perjury the statements in the complaint are true to the best of my knowledge and belief. We will get a copy of that to you and ask that you execute it. All right, let's talk about the ticket. I don't know much about this other than what the ticket says. It alleged that on or about May 22nd in the Village of White Pigeon at 606 West Chicago Road, violation of the junk vehicle litter and rubbish ordinance. Into the remarks section, it says, after giving the property owner until April 26th to clean the property remains in violation. Mr. Coaches, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your
Uh,
Honor.
Mr. Cash, are you ready to go?
Yes, I guess. I
Mr.
asked to
Coaches?
have extended so I could get representation, but they didn't want to do that. I
All right,
needed
well,
to.
this is a civil infraction, so you're not entitled to have court-appointed counsel for this. And you were going to retain counsel. Are you willing to go forward at this point?
Well, I went to retain counsel, and the counsel said he needed 6 weeks, and I spoke with the village attorneys, and they said they weren't willing to do that.
All right. Well, this is a civil infraction. The next problem will become, if you're found responsible for this, the compliance order. And at that point, then perhaps you can pursue counsel. All right, Mr. Coaches, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we are.
All right, you may call your witness.
Village would call Douglas Coleman.
Mr. Coolman, you're under oath.
Thank you, Your
What's your
Honor.
position with the Village of White Pigeon?
I am the zoning administrator and code compliance officer for the Village of White Pigeon.
All right, Mr. Coaches.
Thank you, Your Honor. For the sake of this formal hearing, I believe Mr. Coleman does have pictures he'd like to show the court. Does he have permission to screen share so the court can view the pictures and proposed exhibits?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Coleman, are you familiar with the name Jerome Cash?
Yes, I am.
How do you know Mr. Cash?
Mr. Cash has been in the Village of White Pigeon for several years. I have in the past authorized Class A, Class B dealership licenses for him. I did permit a project for him clear back in 2014. So Village of White Pigeon is a small community, and so pretty much everybody knows everybody.
Sure. Do you see him here present in this Zoom meeting?
Yes, I do.
Can you please, I guess, point to him and identify an article of clothing he's wearing?
It looks like he's in a black suit with a black, red, and possibly white tie. Looks like he's sitting in his office with some emblems behind him.
Thank you. Your Honor, may the record reflect in court identification of Mr. Cash.
It may.
Thank you. I'd like to turn your attention to May 22nd, 2021. Are you familiar? Do you recall that day?
Yes, I do.
Did you issue a citation on that day to Mr. Cash?
I did.
What was that citation for?
I had sent him a letter regarding junk vehicles, litter, debris, other things that were on his property, and gave him a time frame to which he could clean the property up.
How long did you work with Mr. Cash before issuing the citation?
I sent him a letter back in, just a minute. I sent him a letter back in March of 2014. I'm sorry, March 24th, 2021, advising him of the violations. I don't know what has ever happened, but Mr. Cash does not want to deal with me. And so our communication after the letters have been sent have been zero. So I gave him a time frame and actually gave him some additional time after hearing nothing and the property not being cleaned up. I issued the municipal civil infraction.
Did you take pictures of the property to
I did.
memorialize its condition?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Mr. Coleman, if we were in person, this is when I'd approach you and ask to identify some pictures as exhibits. The court gave you permission to screen share. At this time, I would just ask that you screen share the proposed exhibits we're going to enter into evidence that reflect the condition of Mr. Cash's property. As you're doing that,
Okay.
Mr. Coleman, what's the address of the property Mr. Cash owns?
The address is 606 West Chicago Road.
Is that located in
White Pigeon?
White Pigeon, St. Joseph's County, Michigan?
That is correct.
And he's the owner?
According to the county record, yes, he is the owner of the property.
All right, we'll ask that you screen share those pictures, please.
I'm working on that right now. It's Give me just a minute. For some reason, it's here, but it's not showing up on the screen to do a screen share. Here it is. Okay, can you see the photograph now?
Yes.
Yes, and Your Honor, I'd like these to be identified as the village's proposed Exhibit 1. All of these photographs, I believe they're dated May 22nd, 2021. All right, Mr. Coleman, could you please?
Just a minute, Mr. Coolman, are these fair and accurate representations of what you saw at that time?
Yes, they are, Your Honor.
All right, it's a bit cumbersome, but we'll admit the entire package as exhibit number 1 for purposes of this formal hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Coleman, you took these pictures
Yes, I did.
and they accurately depict what the Mr. Cash's property looked like on May 22nd, 2021.
Yes, it does.
Can you please scroll through these pictures and just explain to the court what we're looking at, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So this is looking from the east to the west. This property in the background here with the white home is Mr. Cash's property. There was a barn here that unfortunately caught on fire. He has done some progress in getting that cleaned up. We're just waiting for him to have a final inspection on that by our building inspector, and he can get his Michigan fire withholding insurance money returned to him from the village. This is just a closer up view. You can see where the vehicle hoist was. That's where the barn was. If you look towards the back of the property here, you can see the tall vegetation. We've got all kinds of debris and litter that's lining up against the back of the property. This is a view from the west to the east of this property. You can see that there's looks like a commercial air conditioner unit sitting on the ground. We've got building materials piled up here, which is part of the beams and stuff that I believe came from the barn that burned. Here's at the time, what appeared to be an unlicensed trailer with a partial part of an airplane sitting on it. We got a Class C motorhome sitting back here. The weeds are growing around it. I did not view any license plate on this vehicle either. Here's just a little bit of a closer view. You can see behind the office area, there's debris laying around the building. The grass is growing up to the bottom level of the pontoon boat. We've got a motorcycle leaning up against the pontoon trailer. This is a view towards the back of the property. Again, you can see cars lined up with the vegetation's all growing up around them. There's a pile here. I've got another picture. Pile of cement block and brick and other things that are just piled up in the weeds. We have a vehicle here that appears to be inoperable. I did not walk onto the property, so I cannot verify whether that one is licensed or not. Just another angle of the same stuff. Kind of another view again, pretty much what I just indicated. So here's the air conditioner unit that we talked about. We've got beams and other boards sitting on the property.
Mr. Coleman, as far as
This is just the,
go ahead.
this is just the mailbox in front of the residence with a copy of the citation that was posted on the property. The citation was posted on the property and also mailed to Mr. Cash in the United States Mail. Those are the pictures for that date.
right, thank you, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman, did you inspect the property recently?
Yes, I did.
When did you last inspect this?
I was out there on August the 2nd.
And can you please describe to the court the property's condition on August 2nd?
Let me stop you for a minute. This isn't a compliance hearing. This is a formal hearing on the original citation. So isn't there an issue about whether anything that happened in August is relevant to this May citation?
You know, Your Honor, looking at the ordinance, there's a chance that it could be because certain inoperable motor vehicles, there's something in there about in excess of 30 days within there. So I'm just trying to establish that these have been on the property for more than 30 days.
All right.
So Mr. Coleman, upon your inspection on August 2nd, can you please describe to the court what that looked like?
I can do a screen share of that as well. So this is a report that you can see I took on August 2nd of 2021.
I'm going to admit this as exhibit number 2.
Again, here is from looking from the east to the west. We've still got tall vegetation. We've got debris. It's now being difficult to see because the vegetation is growing up taller than the debris that's in the area. This is a view from the entryway of the business. We still have the air conditioner unit and the lumber piled up with vegetation growing up all around it. Here is a view from the west to the east. You can see up here, and these were in the original inspection. We've got 2 pickup trucks. This one here that's closest to the building is missing the whole front end of the truck with no motor in it. This vehicle over here is missing the rear half portion of the vehicle. I did not view any license plate on this vehicle. It was unable to tell whether this one that doesn't even have a motor in it was licensed or not. Here's the view of the rear of the property. Again, all the cars that you previously saw are still sitting there with weeds growing up around them. We've still got lumber stacked up in the yard. Here's the vehicle that I mentioned in the first report that's sitting here with weeds and brush growing up all around it. We've got blocks and bricks and cement piled up in the yard with vegetation growing around it. Here's another view of the property. The Class C motor coach is still sitting there with vegetation growing up around it. The car dolly obviously hasn't moved in quite some time because the vegetation's grown up around all of it. Here's back to the northwest corner, a pile of cement blocks and whatever just thrown in a pile with vegetation growing up around it. Kind of the same view. This pickup truck's been sitting there, vegetation growing up all around it. There's no evidence of a license plate on the vehicle. Another view. This is the trailer that did not have any license plate on it. I had a view before the semi-trailer was moved in. The semi-trailer from the original inspection has now been moved in for whatever reason. So this appeared to be an unlicensed trailer, and this is a part of an airplane that's sitting on top of that trailer.
So, Mr. Coleman, does the
Closer
condition of the
view,
property appear to be the same as it was on the day the citation was issued?
I see absolutely no improvement
Okay.
from this property, no.
Whether those vehicles were licensed?
I do not know if they're licensed or not. I have not been on the property, and I've had no communication with Mr. Cash whatsoever.
Do you know how that property is zoned?
It is zoned commercial.
Okay. Is he running a business or would otherwise be authorized to have vehicles like that on his property?
He has a Class A license, which is new vehicles. He has a Class B license, which is used vehicles. He recently requested a Class C license for vehicle parts, and that request was denied because he would have to go to the Planning Commission to seek approval for parts and items like that. It's been made pretty clear by our Planning Commission with other businesses in the area that they would only allow whole entire parts that are available, or whole entire vehicles that are available for sale.
Now, as far
So I
as
denied that request for a Class C license, and I have not had any other requests since then.
okay, now as far as what you cited him for under ordinance number 200-208-84, do you have the copy of that ordinance available?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can you please screen share that for the court?
You should be able to see it now on the screen.
Okay, can you please just briefly go through this ordinance and describe the violations you're presenting to the court based on those pictures you took?
This is a very old ordinance in the village of White Pigeon, adopted clear back in July 16th of 1984. It is entitled the Junk, Rubbish, and Abandoned Car Ordinance. And it's, as it's indicated, it's a regulation to control the storage and accumulation and disposition of junk, trash, rubbish, abandoned vehicles, wrecked, dismantled, or unusable vehicles within the village of White Pigeon. I think there's a lot of definitions here, but I think there's one portion that is pretty clear, which is 122.003 of unlawful storage. And it says that any person, firm, or corporation to park, store, or permit the storage of accumulation of trash, rubbish, junk vehicles, or abandon on any private property in the village, except within a completely enclosed building or garage, or upon the premises of a property zone licensed or approved junk dealer, junk buyer, dealer in used auto parts, or dealer in a secondhand goods.
So real quick,
not-
Mr. Coleman, let me stop you there. Is he an approved junk dealer or junk buyer?
No,
And I believe you already testified that he's not a auto parts dealer. Is that correct?
that is correct.
And as far as you know, is he a dealer in secondhand goods?
He could sell used motor vehicles there, yes.
Does any of those vehicles appear to be offered for sale from what you can see?
He does have some out by the road on a gravel area that I presume are for sale, but these back here that are back with weeds growing up all around them, those do not appear to be offered for sale to anyone.
Okay. Can you please scroll down to section, the abatement of the public nuisance? Did you see any accumulation of trash or rubbish or junk contained in those pictures?
Yes, there's building material and other cast off items that are out on the property.
Is there anything additional you'd like to tell the court about this matter?
I just think it's kind of important to understand that this isn't in the outskirts of town. This is on Chicago Road, which is US 12 in the village of White Pigeon. Hundreds and hundreds of cars drive by this property every day. So this is definitely a blighted condition. are an attractive nuisance, and I believe that it's an eyesore to the community, and the village would like to have this cleaned up ASAP. We've got new businesses coming into town, and we're trying to promote the town, and this, I think, takes away from that attractiveness.
The last section under their penalty, 122.005, designates a violation of this ordinance as a municipal civil infraction. Is that correct?
This is a civil infraction citation, yes. However, I will indicate to you that, that back in 2012, the Village of White Pigeon through your office did do an update for municipal civil infractions, and so the penalty provision there, I think now goes up to $500.
All right, thank you. Your Honor, I have no additional questions for this witness. Thank you.
Mr. Cash, before you give your side of the story, do you have any questions you wish to ask of Mr. Coolman?
Well, like I said earlier, I really would want to get legal counsel to help me because I'm not an attorney, Your Honor. The deal, I hope you understand, and everybody understands, that the city put a new water main in. And they started on my property.
Well, all right, well, let me stop you for a minute, because
Okay.
I'll give you a chance to testify, but if you don't have any other questions for Mr. Coolman, we'll go into your testimony here.
Okay.
So are you willing to tell me what you want me to know? You're under oath.
Yes, last November, they started a water main project in my driveway. And they came right straight through my property. And now the magistrate had the, did you get the package from the magistrate? Because I took a package in for the magistrate that he looked at. And
No, I did not. Just a moment.
and they're trying to beautify.
Hold it. Stop for a minute.
Okay.
The magistrate isn't here.
Okay.
And give me one moment.
Okay.
I left the record running, but I apologize. The magistrate is off for a few days and the administrator and the staff didn't know where this is. I think he mentioned to me that you had brought him some information. Never got logged in. Was it in a big envelope?
In a, a vanilla folder I give them.
Well, I can't access it right now. I apologize. Let's see we may have to continue this. All right, go ahead.
Well, anyway, they started in my property last November, putting the water main through. Make sure he doesn't. And they tore my driveway all the way up. They tore all my sidewalks, part of my sidewalks out. They actually, and run their water, I pulled a hole in, so my sewage for about 6 or 8 weeks just dumped into the ground there by my house. And of course, then I finally figured out that I had a problem. I thought it was my problem. I spent about a day and a half trying to figure it out, and I figured out what it was they never hooked my sewer line back up. They came right through my sewer line, cut it out, and never hooked it back up. Now, just yesterday and today, they're finally coming in and they're out fixing my sprinkler system, which they completely took out. And of course, my front yard, they just fixed it last week. They went through and they didn't do a very good job of it, but they tried to and so I'm sure that somebody's putting a little heat on and get it done. But if they started here last November, why didn't they fix this last spring? And that's what I've been telling everybody, that you get your act together and I'll get my act together. And maybe that's not the right way of doing it, but that's, you got to have a hammer somehow, don't you, Your Honor? And so my drive, Gordy Morris did my drive 20 years ago, and I never had water standing. Now I got water standing all over my drive. I'm just wanting my property back the way it was. And as far as now, I know he took some pictures from the east, and those big tall weeds that are growing there happen to be my rhubarb plants, because that's my garden right there. So, and I have 3 pieces of stuff. Bill McCarroll, and I had to, I'm trying to help him, and I had to get his stuff together. I got to get to take him out.
Mr. Cash, I'm losing your signal a little bit. Plus, I can't see your whole head.
Okay. I'm on my mobile phone. Yesterday, we lost internet connection for about 2 hours. So I'm just using my phone because I'm figuring that will work.
Well, it's adequate so far.
So, and we've been working on it now. Maybe Kuhlman doesn't think it, but we've cut a lot of stuff out of here, and there's receipts in that file that I took to your magistrate, and where we've hauled loads of stuff out of here. The insurance company gave me $3,250 to clean the place up, and I've spent way more than that. And I got about half what it's going to cost to build another building. And so I've probably been dragging my feet a little bit because I'm trying to do this myself so I can afford to maybe put up a new building. And again, some of these that I've got a truck out here that he says the front end's off. Well, the front end's in the trunk, and there's another truck out here, and it is a pair that I'm trying to sell as a refurb. It's a diesel that, and maybe someday it'll get done. I had a lot of people on it. Some of the cars in the back, I actually have some customers on some of them. So he may think I don't try to sell that stuff, but I do. So, and being a used car dealer, we've only been selling cars in St. Joe County since 1951. So I'm not a spring chicken to this business. And some people tell me what I should sell and how I should sell it. And, I don't know anybody that's got the knowledge to be telling me what to do. And
Well, you have to concede, this looks bad. There's a 10 or 12 cars parked back there with junk weeds growing around, piles of bricks, broken trailers, a grown-up pontoon boat, a Honda motorbike, just junk. And
those cars were in the, so when the barn burned, I lost a lot of storage space, Your Honor. And I wanted to get some temporary storage, and they turned me down. They said I have to have engineered drawings in order to put temporary building stuff. And I could have put that stuff in a couple temporary buildings and everybody'd be happy, but they didn't want me to do that. Somebody's fighting me, Your Honor, and I will find out who. And we'll get it figured out.
well, between March and now, these citations were issued in May. It doesn't look like anything has been done between May and now to clean any of this up. Have you? Now,
Your Honor,
go ahead.
interrupt you, but there's been a lot of stuff taken care of.
Tell me about that.
Well, we've I've had some scrappers take some cars to the scrap yard. We've mowed the grass. We've got a lot of the weeds. We took a big pile of dirt out of here a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to straighten out that part of the building so that we can get ready to put another building up if we decide to do that. The people I'm working with, Jason Trosfer. Jason's been so busy, he hasn't been able to help me a lot either. And there's a shortage and I know Niblock's having trouble hiring people to do their job.
Well, everybody's looking for contractors and materials, but let me tell you what we're doing here. You got a ticket, which is a civil infraction ticket, and a civil infraction is payable by a fine. You can't go to jail for a civil infraction, which is why you don't get the right to court-appointed counsel in a civil infraction, because you can't go to jail. And it doesn't like that I put somebody in jail for something like this anyway, but it is a civil infraction, which is like a speeding ticket or running a stop sign, although the fines are more consequential. So you had an informal hearing, which is where these are normally set before a magistrate. Magistrate found that you were responsible for the violations. And the standard is not very high. When you're charged with a criminal offense, it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a civil infraction. It has to be proved beyond a preponderance, which means 51 to 49%, just barely more. So it's a lower standard of proof. And the question is, on that day, May 22nd, was this property in violation of the village ordinance? That's really the relevant question. What the shape of the property is today, what got you to that point, aren't really relevant. Also, I kind of see what you're doing, but the fact that you're trying to push back at the village for tearing up your property and getting them to do something to remediate it isn't a defense. This is a civil infraction with a probable cause standard. Now, there's going to be a reckoning at some point if you're found responsible. Once you're found responsible, and I would use your bond money to pay your fine, then at some point the village will file a compliance order ordering you to clean this property up. We haven't gotten to that point yet. And I have a lot of hearings regarding that. I had about 5 or 6 yesterday, varying properties around the county, Colon Township, Burr Oak Township, White Pigeon Township. Anyway, I have lots of them every other week. And the townships come in and say, we want you to clean this up, or we're going to clean it up and give you the bill. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but that's coming. The question here today is there the preponderance of evidence to believe that this violated the order, and there is. The pictures clearly show inoperable vehicles, junk, debris, and other things that are there in violation of the village ordinance. As I said, that's a pretty easy standard to meet. It's like, were you going 70 and a 55 or not? It's a preponderance of evidence. Is this stuff in violation of the village ordinance, or isn't it? Now, you say you're trying to find out who's pushing this. I don't know. Sometimes I call it the man behind the curtain. Who is the driving force behind what's going on? Here it appears to be the White Pigeon Village Council. I'm familiar with your property, Mr. Cash, and I've known you for many years. It always looks clean and well kept in the front, and you're right, you've been in business for 60 years or more, coming up on 70 years. Your family has. And you don't stay in business for 70 years if you cheat people. But you had this fire, which I suspect a lot of this stuff was back there anyway, but the fire in the building caused a lot of this stuff to be out there accumulated. It just is what it is. There's probably 10 cars back there which are inoperable. You're not a junk car dealer. You're not licensed for that. And apparently they don't want a junk car dealer there. I'm not sure what's up with this pontoon boat or the airplane parts or the Honda CB 160 back there, or the semi-trailer or the Class C motorhome. You got a bunch of stuff back there that might have been in the shed or the building that burned down. And it's there, and they asked you to clean it up, and you didn't, and they issued you a ticket. They had an informal hearing in front of a magistrate. They asked you to clean it up, and you didn't. You asked for a formal hearing, and here we are today. So your problem is not so much today, Mr. Cash. You paid the bond, which I will apply to your fine. Your problem is going to be when they ask for a compliance order and ask me or another judge to make you clean it up. Now, you've got a plan to rebuild this storage building, but there's multiple problems. A, you can't get a contractor these days in a timely manner. You can't get a lot of materials. Supply chains are all backed up. C, it's probably more expensive than you thought it was going to be. The price of lumber has gone up substantially. And so if you could snap your fingers and have a 60 by 80 pole building there, we could put all this stuff in there and it would solve the problem. But that ain't going to happen in the immediate future. In the meantime, they want you to clean this up. I'll take you at your word that you've hauled a lot of junk out of there. But the question is, what was the status on May 22nd? And on May 22nd, this property is not in compliance with the junk vehicle ordinance. So I find that you're responsible. Contingent on plaintiff filing a signed jurat. And I'll apply the bond, which is $960. And that's the extent of it for today. I suspect that sometime in the next month or 50 days or so, you're gonna get a compliance order asking you to comply with the terms of the ordinance based on this civil infraction finding of responsibility. Then we'll have further hearings. You can have counsel there. I often try to work with the people to get the problem remedied. Sometimes they're cooperative and we have good success in remediating properties. We've had some outstanding cleanup jobs. Sometimes they're not, and the township or village just comes in and does it and puts the bill on the tax roll. But I don't, the village is interested in having this remediated. All right, my ruling is that there is preponderance of evidence to believe that the defendant was in violation of the White Pigeon ordinance on May 22nd of 21. I came to the same conclusion the magistrate did based on the same set of proofs. Under the ordinance 200-208, section 3 and 4. You do actually have a right to appeal this to the circuit court, but as a rule, I think the fight probably would be better saved for the compliance order when we get into that portion of this. All right, that completes this record. Mr. Coaches, I will send you that jurat if they didn't already send it up there. It needs to be executed. All right, thank you.
Your Honor, should I submit an order requiring compliance under the 7-day rule?
Yes.
All right.
Sooner than I thought. All right. You'll
Your
get
Honor.
that. Yes, sir.
Due to the fact that I'm in violation, if there's members of the council that are in violation, shouldn't they be taken care of too?
That's a good question, and it comes up quite often. That
Seems like
people are saying,
we
well,
got
hey,
two
look at my neighborhood. What about this guy and this guy and this guy? It's a difficult defense to make. We had a county commissioner once. In fact, I think a couple of the county, they had junk all over the place, and the people are like, why are they picking on me when they're not picking on Commissioner so-and-so? I don't know that I have an answer to that, but that certainly is a relevant question. It's not a defense, but if other people are in violation, perhaps they should address that as well. There is a concept of discretionary enforcement of the ordinances. I can think of one particular township, a property I know has been out of compliance for 30 years. It's a mess. Junk cars all over the place, all kinds of stuff. Apparently nobody's complained. And so there's been no action. So I'm not sure, but it isn't an explicit defense, but you raise an interesting point. All right, this record is completed.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I will print a copy of that and ask you to scan it, and we'll send it up to Mr. Coaches.
Okay, want me to stop?
Yes, please. All right. That completes our morning doc.